So there's a practice term that escapes me at the moment where primarily people from like the lost media community will, when they're trying to figure out the owner of a piece of film or music or a TV show, they'll actually like purposely throw it up on a content aware tracking ID site such as YouTube and see if there's a sort of like match to who the legal rights holders are. And in case there isn't, they will then take that second step and start distributing it. Not monetized, of course, but putting it on sites such as YouTube, Facebook, Instagram to sort of bait out the owner, to have someone say, hey, you can't do that. I own that. And then like, oh, so you're the one who owns this. Wonderful. Because if there's one thing the internet has taught us is people love to correct each other, to the point that I know several content creators who will purposely leave in a tiny flub that will attract commentators to put comments about, hey, actually, you messed up in this part. Hi, everyone. I'm Neerat. This is Neerat's D&D. And what I'm going to be doing today is discussing a topic that hasn't been really covered by Mr. Matt Covell. In fact, I've gone as so far as to hijack his office. As you can see by the shoddy Photoshop I've done, can you believe I couldn't find a single frame where he leaves his chair. He just never gets out. Talk about consistency. Now, you might be wondering, why are you doing this? Why can't you just do like a regular D&D advice video? Well, I will tell you, my friend. This is an opportunity for me to kill 3 birds with 1 stone. Quite a feat. The first one is, it's a tribute to Mr. Matt Covell himself. I really appreciate all he's brought to the craft. He is arguably the best source for new DMs to get advice from, and a wonderful source of inspiration for longtime DMs to reinforce what they know and contest and compare their path of thinking to his path of thinking. Matt Covell's Running the Game series stands as a great litmus test to how you do things compared to his. I'm sure he would never want everyone to do everything the way he's doing it, but it's a great way to compare how you do things to the way he does things. I mean, if you told me the guy who made these 3 stinkers, okay, Mercenaries is like a strong 7 out of 10. If you told me the head writer for these 3 stinkers would go on to become one of the best sources for DM advice, yeah, I believe you. It takes people some time to hit their niches, to find their stride. And maybe you take a few swings in some industries and in some different hobbies, but eventually you find your place. Total Rock Studios is best known as the company that helped Valve make Left 4 Dead. And thankfully, Matt Covell, as far as I know, had nothing to do with Back 4 Blood. Bullet dodged there, buddy. But yeah, he went on to start his YouTube career at a fledgling 44 years old, which I think is remarkable. Matt Covell's story is one of resilience, of slow, periodical improvement. He started his YouTube channel at 44 years old, and I find it highly motivational. It shows that you're never too old to pivot. You're never too old to learn new tricks. You're never too old to start over. So if you ever think to yourself, oh, it's too late, he's proof that you're dead wrong. So second bird I'm killing with the stone addresses a huge problem. Surprisingly, he hasn't covered this issue, which is scheduling. And I guess technically it's not running the game, it's before the game. But it's the ultimate BBG, if you ask most people on about D&D. Scheduling, getting people in the room consistently every night or day over a long period of time, maybe years even. So while he hasn't covered this exact dedicated topic or made a dedicated video to this topic, I'd like to take my own crack at it and contribute my take of how to handle this scheduling issue. And perhaps you can glean something from my advice. And hey, if Matt Covell is repulsed and revolted by how awful I desecrate his office with my subpar advice, I'd be more than happy to. I would be more than happy to have him come in and do his own take on things and do it better, basically. So yeah, first bird. 1, it's a tribute to Matt Covell, not a replacement. 2, it is addressing a huge problem. And 3, I've always wanted to do the April Fool's YouTube video, and I know I just started my YouTube career, and it's a little early to do it, but hey, it's April, and I'm not going to wait a whole year to do this damn bit, so let's just go for it. So yeah, if you are still upset, check the upload date, and perhaps then it all makes sense. Tune in me a bit, will ya? So, you want to run D&D or a TTRPG of your choice. You get your friends, or you find a few online strangers or online friends, or somewhere in the middle, and you decide, hey, let's just say D&D for the sake of simplicity. Hey, let's run some D&D, guys. What time works for you? Everyone tells you what time works for them. Wednesday nights at 8. Perfect. All right, we'll see you then. Wednesday night comes around, and you all arrive, and you enjoy some D&D. It rarely works out that way. And if it works out that way the first time, well, come the second time, you have one player who's like, oh, actually, I have this thing going on. The second week, you have Johnny sending DMs in a group chat saying, hey, guys, I really want to see this new movie that's coming out. So I'm not going to make it this week. And then third week, you have this guy who's like, oh, this new video game just dropped. I want to play that, so I'm not going to be coming this week. And next thing you know, you haven't had a full group for the past half year. So let's talk about that. Now, the first mistake groups make, players make, DMs make is you talk about the time before you talk about the game. It's kind of counterintuitive. You would assume, hey, we should probably talk about a time before we even talk about the game. We don't want to get all riled up into a game and find out that nothing works for us. Well, actually, you do want to find out what game you want before you even discuss what time, how often. The game that you're going to be playing is important. First of all, some campaigns are longer than others. Some modules are really long. Are you doing a module? Are you doing homebrew? Are you doing a sandbox, a West Marches? You really have to take the scope of your campaign and think realistically. Is this something that could be going on forever? Because if it goes on forever, well, life happens. People have jobs, people lose interest, people gain new hobbies, people just find ways to drift apart all the time. So you have to accept the fact that the longer your group's adventure is going to be, the percentage, the chance of people leaving, the people of the group falling apart will naturally increase. So consider setting expectations and talking about, hey, we haven't really tested the iron of this group, the tenacity of this group quite yet. Let's not start with a multi-year module. Let's do something, maybe a one-shot, or if not that. A great way to do a shortened module is to take some of those compilation books, such as Tales from the Yawning Portal or The Keys from the Golden Vault, which are like 6 through 13 adventures that you can sort of do an overarching, loosely tied narrative, and you'll have a full campaign within 10 to 20 sessions, which is about 3 to 6 months. And that's a much more realistic standard to hold people to. So yeah, you've talked about what you're going to run. Now, how often you're going to run it. I know the weekly campaign is incredibly popular, but popularity doesn't mean success. A bi-weekly campaign might be the right fit for your group. A monthly campaign might be the right fit for your group. One thing I've actually suggested, which it's not my idea, but I've seen it around forums, and I think it's a great success, is to do sort of on-off scheduling, where you'll have 3 weeks on, you'll run 3 Friday nights in a row, and then that 4th Friday you'll have off. And it doesn't have to be 3 on and 1 off. It could be 4 on and 1 off. It could be 5 on and 1 off. It could be 4 on and 2 off, so to speak. Just something you and the group can have that breather week where you all have that one Friday night freed up to do something else besides play D&D. Not only is it going to give you a little break from constant prep, another thing is, it is true that the right amount of absence does make the heart grow fonder. And with that gap week, you're going to have people excited and motivated to see what's going to happen the next session, based off the cliffhanger or last event you left them off at. So taking rest days, just like any good workout, is beneficial. Okay, you've talked about the kind of game, you've talked about the frequency you're going to be running that game. Now let's talk about, well, what time? I know I said nights a lot, but it doesn't have to be nights. The best time is the time that works for everyone. But it's got to be a consistent time, because a moving target is a lot harder to hit than a still target. So find a time that works for everyone. Let's say, for the sake of this, actually, let's talk about one thing in general. before we so you pick a time, Friday nights, Saturdays, Fridays are very juicy, tempting days, but you have to consider the how hotly contested those days are for everyone. I mean, Friday nights and Saturday nights are the go-tos for going out, just catching a movie, going out to eat, going to an event, doing something with other friends. So one thing you have to take in consideration is, well, sure, we'll be fine with this Friday, but what about 10 Fridays from now? There'll be more competition for outside stimuli to say, hey, come do this, come play this game, come outside, go touch grass instead. If Friday and Saturdays are the only days at work, go for it. But I would strongly recommend picking days that are less competitive, such as, Tuesday nights, Wednesday days. Daytime D&D is just as valid as nighttime D&D. I'm just used to saying night. Something that's going to be more consistently not tempted by outside forces to skip out on D&D, right? So yeah, decide on a day, and yeah, you've got your frequency figured out. You got the campaign you want to run, the sort of campaign you want to run, and you figured out what time and day and presumably place. And there's some other things you got to talk about. What is the nature of this group? Are these a few online people you pulled together? Are these IRL friends? Are these longtime friends? Are these bosses? Are these girlfriends? Are these boyfriends? Are these people that you have personal connections to where events of the game can bleed out onto, well, not the game? That's something you have to consider. If one of your players is being the biggest jerk in the world, are you in a position where you can tell them, hey, get out. You can't play at our table anymore. Or is that player your boss? That's one thing you have to consider. And of course, it doesn't have to be IRL friends. People have really strong connection with online friends as well. So you have to put yourself in a position where you as DM are able to make those hard calls, those tough decisions. You're a referee, not just of the game, not just of the party, but also of the group. If you are a GM who is not able to tell a player no, or that they can't play, that's about as effective as a manager that can't fire people. So you consider the situation, you decided to go for it, you picked time, place, you've got the group module, you got everything. Next thing to consider now you're starting to play is the consistency, the attendance rate of players. It's important for a player to be not only committed to showing up, but engaged. There's so many players that show up to the table and on their phones or are basically watching a 3-hour cutscene and basically only there to be a glorified NPC. And that might work for some tables that have a lot of players. The more players you have in your table size, the more audience members you're going to want. As a vice versa to that, the smaller your table size, the few less audience members you can afford. If you have a table of 4 people and 2 of them are audience members, those 2 active, engaged players are going to feel a lot more weight on their shoulders. So it's really about finding that right mix of who's more of a backline player and who's more of a frontline player, if I can use D&D combat terms. One thing you have to consider is attendance rates. Now, if someone's rarely dropping games and they say, oh, I can't make it this week, and they've been able to make the last 10 sessions, no problem. Don't ask a reason why. Just say, hey, hope all is well, and I'll see you next week. But if you have a player who is missing over, honestly, I think a minimum attendance rate is, I personally adhere to a 75% attendance rate minimum. If I look at the last 4 sessions and you've missed more than one of those sessions, we have a problem and you may not be a good fit for my group. For those players that are either approaching or at that 75 percentage rate, I would ask a reason. And the reason itself doesn't really matter. It's more of testing what they compare the value of your game to other things in their life. Why are they constantly picking other things besides your game? Because the simple truth could just be that they're just not that into it. Now, if a player has to leave, depending on the situation, if you can just fill that spot with another friend or another online applicant or an in-person applicant, if you really got it like that, hey, props to you and your area, I suppose. Do so. I think it's totally normal for the first 10 or so sessions to sort of be a filtering process, like a self-correcting organism where players who can make the cut survive that 10 session test. And those who do still stick around after 10 or so sessions, they're going to most likely be around for dozens of sessions more, perhaps the whole length of the campaign. That's going to be your core group more often than not. And that's because people in general are really good at reading the room, reading the groups. And if they are engaged in the play, engaged with the party, and they look around and say, hey, this isn't for me, there's no need for a messy back and forth or you having to make the hard call to kick them out. 9 times out of 10, they'll see themselves out because they know it's not the table for them. The next thing you're going to talk about is sometimes you need to cancel an entire session. It's less about one player not showing up and just not enough players showing up. Maybe there's a weird sickness going around. Or you'll find that sometimes it's just a really weird game night and everyone's busy with something and just the universe aligning to just not make tonight happen. When do you make that call to cancel the entire session? Well, what I go by is there's table sizes of all sizes. There's just tables as little as 3 players and ones as high as 9 players. I know that wasn't really that uncommon back in the days of AD&D. You would see table sizes of 8 through 12 players pretty regularly, especially within like game shops and whatnot. A good rule of thumb that I go by is take your table size and cut it in half, round up to the nearest player because you can't use half a player unless you're a necromancer. If you have a table size of like 5 players, divided by half, 2.5, rounded up to 3. 3 players is your minimum to run. 9 players, divided by half, 4.5, rounded up to 5. 5 players is your minimum to run. Now, you might say, hey, I have a really story important session coming up. It's a really big fight with like a really important bad guy, or there's a really emotional, pivotal scene for one of the party members that really needs to be experienced, or a backstory revelation that's occurring. And at that point, it's really your call. But one thing you should definitely never, ever, no matter what, do is skip more than 1 session. Don't skip 2 sessions in a row, except for holidays and exceptional circumstances, such as like a birthday or a death in the family. I very much do not recommend skipping more than 1 session in a row. That's like a death knell for campaigns as far as I'm concerned. Get together and do something, even if it's like a one-shot. Get all the players that will show up that day, even if it's below the minimum. Even though that's not ideal, but even if it's below the minimum, get them together, run a one-shot or a side story. Hell, it might be a good time to do like a mid-campaign re-session 0, where you talk about how things are going so far, what needs adjusting, checking in with everybody, what's working and what's not. D&D, TTRPGs is a momentum-based activity. So it's really important to have those sessions, have that player motivation keep rolling in their heads. So that's why I really recommend not skipping more than 1 session in a row. If you do those 2 weeks, when you do get back in the game, they're going to be just sitting there sort of like, oh yeah, what did we do last session? We were going to go to that place and do that thing. And even if you have the best note takers in the world, their notes might be up to date, but their heart might not be in it, you know? They're going to be emotionally removed from it. So try to avoid that. Now, one thing I hear a lot within groups is a recommendation of, hey, Nir, what about like if just this 1 week we decide to do, our games are usually on Wednesday nights. What about we do a Thursday night? And I'd say use that very, very, very sparingly, like once in a blue moon. It might work for a one-off week. If you have Christmas on the 25th, but everyone's free the 22nd, go for it. But if you find yourself doing that more often than not, that's a problem. A moving target is harder to hit than a still one, and sometimes it's worth it to skip that 1 session just entirely, just to avoid having to do this dance of everyone in the group trying to find that secondary gap in the schedule that they have that all aligns, which may be harder than you think. So last piece of advice I have for scheduling. All this advice is really applicable to a campaign that's in any stage, whether it's the beginning, the middle, or the end, but more specifically toward the end of a campaign, when you're over halfway, maybe even the final third act, you may be in a situation where your group has lost a few core members, And the members that are there are sort of drifting apart, or you can just get that sense that things are people move on. It's a big ask to dedicate one reserved time slot for months, even years. When's the last time you've done something for multiple years straight that isn't a passion or a job, right? And you might even be in a situation where even if you are willing to involve new friends, new players, pull new applicants, they might even not want to join a campaign that's nearing its end or over halfway involved in, because they don't get to, the buy-in is not there. They don't know the motivations of your characters, of your world, the story this far, and why they're just doing this at all. So it's totally fine, and I recommend it to have a candid conversation with your existing group and talk about doing an abridged or condensed ending where you say, okay, guys, we're like a few chapters away from the ending of this campaign, but we got the core group and we don't think we're going to have any more coming in, or maybe we don't want any more coming in. So let's say we cut out the side quests, maybe we skip this chapter or two, and we have a satisfying ending. We give ourselves like 3 months, 2 months, 4 months to find a more streamlined, organic way to end this adventure we've spent so much time on. I mean, I've done that myself to great effect. I said, hey guys, I can't go off book as much, and we can't do as many side quests as we'd like, but I think we can really get this done within 3 months if we promise to stay adventure focused and mainline focused. I think it's a great solution. And yeah, that's it. That's all I got for scheduling related advice. I don't want to expand past the purview of this quick little info dump. If you've got any more questions, leave them down in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed my tribute take on the Running the Game series. I won't be making another one of these, obviously, unless it's April Fool's again next year. But even then, I might do maybe another YouTuber's thing, maybe like a Genie D or an XP level 3, assuming you guys even like this at all. Just by pure happenstance, this isn't the only Matt Koval related video I have on the docket. Don't worry though, it's not a hit piece, nor is it overtly glowing praise. I think it's meant to be a sort of historical retelling of a timeline of events, online events that were vastly underreported. I think it'll be fun and inspire good conversation, which is like the 2 out of 3 things I look for when it comes for a good video idea. The third thing I look for being, well, who else is talking about it? Okay, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I made a Nearets D&D Discord. Never too small to start, right? And I've also added a link to all my games that I run. They're paid games, but if you want to check them out, I put that and the Discord link down in the doobly-doo. If you want to hear more about the whole paid games thing, check out this video I made about my first year as a paid GM. But that's it. That's all I got for you guys. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace out.